That night began quietly, almost too quietly. The desert air was still and the sky looked endless, stretched out like a sheet of black silk dotted with diamonds. Inside the observatory, a group of tired scientists worked their usual night shift, checking screens, logging data, and sipping cold coffee. The place was silent except for the hum of machines. Then suddenly, one small light started blinking on a monitor. At first, no one paid attention. Blinking lights were common in this line of work. Signals came and went all the time, usually interference or a glitch. But this one was different. It wasn't random noise. It had rhythm, like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, repeating. One of the junior researchers leaned closer to the screen. His eyebrows furrowed as the pattern repeated again and again, never breaking. He ran a quick analysis, expecting it to fade, but it didn't. Instead, it grew stronger. Within minutes, others gathered around, whispering, checking instruments, adjusting dials. When they mapped the coordinates, silence fell across the room. The source of the signal was far outside our solar system, beyond anything humans had ever reached. The signal continued pulsing in a strange but structured rhythm, like it was trying to say something. It wasn't chaotic. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. By dawn, the observatory had already reported the discovery to the global network. Within hours, governments, space agencies, and private labs across the world were tuned in. Every satellite that could listen was pointed toward that distant star. And every time they listened, the same message repeated. 3 short bursts, 2 long, 1 short. Over and over again. People started calling it the heartbeat of the void. A few days later, the message was finally decoded, or at least partially. The translation was chillingly simple. We need help. The world froze. No one knew how to react. Television anchors struggled to speak as they read the headlines. An alien SOS? A cry for help from another world? For the first time, humanity had proof that it wasn't alone. The news spread like wildfire, streets filled with people staring at the night sky. Some cried, some prayed, some cheered. Hope, fear, wonder. Every emotion collided at once. But while the world dreamed of peaceful contact, the people in power thought differently. Behind closed doors, the signal became a matter of national security. Military advisors gathered in dimly lit rooms, analyzing every waveform, searching for threats. What if this wasn't a cry for help but a trap? What if answering it meant leading an enemy straight to Earth? No one could say for sure. Yet fear, once it takes root, grows fast. In the days that followed, the message became weaker, as if the sender was running out of energy. Scientists begged to respond, to at least send a small reply of comfort. Let us tell them we hear them, one pleaded during a press conference. But the permission never came. The higher powers wanted silence until they understood the full risk. The problem was that no one could understand the risk. The signal didn't come from any known planet. It came from a region beyond mapped space, a place where stars were old and light traveled like ghosts. The coordinates were billions of miles away, but the message carried emotion, desperation that didn't need translation. Soon, fear began spreading among ordinary people too. News channels ran endless debates. Should we help? What if they're dangerous? What if they come here? Social media boiled with rumors. Some said they had seen strange lights in the sky. Others claimed governments were hiding alien crafts. A few religious leaders warned that humanity was being tested, that compassion was the only correct response. Others said the opposite, that it was the devil in disguise. Through all of it, the signal continued. It pulsed every 12 hours, slowly growing weaker, like a voice calling through water. Then, the world changed overnight. A leaked document appeared online, a memo from a defense agency suggesting that the signal contained unknown energy signatures capable of disrupting communication systems. Within hours, panic spread. People began to believe the message was not a call for help, but a weapon. The tone of global conversation shifted. Where there had been curiosity, now there was fear. Where there had been wonder, now there was suspicion. In one emergency session, world leaders held a private meeting broadcast to none. Only fragments of the agenda ever leaked, but insiders later said the same words echoed through every discussion. Prepare for contact, but prepare for war. The next few weeks blurred into madness. Space agencies received orders they couldn't question. Military budgets tripled. Research centers that once studied stars now studied defense protocols. The dream of peaceful discovery quietly turned into a blueprint for survival. Engineers began working day and night, building something new in Earth's orbit. Old satellites were repurposed into surveillance tools. Massive ships began taking shape, part science, part weapon. Still, the public was told it was all defensive research. They called it Operation Dawnlight, a name that sounded calm and hopeful. No one dared question what the dawn would really look like. As the governments prepared, a strange silence fell over the observatory that had first received the message. The scientists were no longer allowed to speak publicly. Their data was taken, their systems locked. One of them stayed behind after everyone else went home. He stared at the monitor where the signal still blinked faintly in the darkness. He couldn't help but feel like someone, somewhere, was still waiting for a reply, a simple reply that would never come. Months passed. The world learned to live under quiet tension. News programs returned to normal, but beneath the surface, everyone knew the truth. Humanity had changed. We had crossed a line we didn't even understand. Then one night, the signal stopped. No warning, no gradual fade, just silence. The observatory system recorded the last pulse at 03:27 a.m. For a moment, the scientists thought it was another glitch, but the pattern never returned. The signal that had filled the world with fear and wonder for almost a year had gone completely dark. Across the planet, there was a collective stillness. People waited, staring at the stars, expecting one final flash of hope. None came. A week later, governments announced the formation of a new alliance, the World Defense Command. It was presented as a unified response to extraterrestrial communication. Every major nation joined, pooling their technology and resources. In speeches, leaders promised protection. They said humanity would face the unknown together. Behind those speeches, however, orders were already signed to build ships that could travel far beyond our system. Ships designed not for exploration, but confrontation. In quiet living rooms, people whispered about what might have happened to the senders. Some said they were dead. Others said they were on their way. But nobody knew the truth. High above Earth, construction began in secret. Giant hangars floated over oceans. Factories retooled themselves overnight. The dream of space exploration had become something darker. Humanity wasn't reaching for the stars to learn. They were reaching to defend, to dominate, to strike first if necessary. In one corner of the world, an old radio operator who had once tracked the original signal sat alone on his porch, staring at the sky. He whispered softly to himself, "Maybe they were just asking for help." His words faded into the night air, unheard by anyone except the wind. He didn't know that his question was being echoed in other corners of the planet, in the minds of scientists, soldiers, and ordinary people who felt something was wrong. They didn't say it out loud, but deep down, many shared the same quiet fear, that humanity's first real contact with another world had begun not with kindness, but with suspicion. The silence of the stars grew heavier. For the first time in history, humanity had received a call from beyond. And instead of answering, it built walls in the sky. Somewhere in that same endless dark, maybe someone, or something, waited for a reply that would never come. The universe felt a little colder after that. After the signal stopped, the world entered a strange kind of quiet. It wasn't peace, it was the kind of silence that follows a thunderstorm, when you know the air still holds electricity. People went back to their daily lives, but something inside humanity had changed. Every time someone looked at the stars, they no longer saw beauty. They saw uncertainty. They saw something waiting. Governments around the world claimed the incident was over. The press releases said the signal was most likely a natural phenomenon. The words were calm, polite, and carefully chosen. Yet behind those official statements, something much bigger was happening. The truth was not silence, it was movement. Every major country was preparing for something they didn't dare explain. Inside heavily guarded bases, military scientists worked day and night, studying what little data they had from the alien message. They couldn't fully decode it, but they believed there was more hidden inside that pattern, something buried deep beneath the "we need help" phrase. Some experts said the message carried strange mathematical symbols, unlike anything seen before. Others thought it contained a map. Whatever it was, the higher authorities didn't want to take chances. They wanted control. Within a few months, the world's governments stopped sharing data with each other. Cooperation turned into competition. Suspicion grew like poison. If one nation found a clue about alien technology, another wanted it first. There were rumors of secret labs under mountains and space programs that no longer reported their launches publicly. While the ordinary people were told everything was fine, space had become the new battlefield. Still, the public couldn't forget. The internet buzzed with conspiracy theories. Some believed the signal was never from aliens at all, but from a hidden human experiment. Others said the government had already met the aliens and were keeping it secret. A few believed that by not answering the SOS, humanity had doomed itself. The tension kept growing. Then something unexpected happened. One night, 6 months after the signal went silent, faint patterns appeared again on global telescopes. It wasn't the same message, but something similar. A weak repetition like an echo. It came from a nearby star system closer than before. Scientists tried to study it, but the data was quickly classified. Within hours, the information vanished from the public network. The next morning, a new headline appeared. World Defense Command officially formed. The name sounded peaceful, but everyone knew it meant one thing. Earth was arming itself. The World Defense Command, or WDC, was a union of the world's biggest powers. They promised to ensure humanity's safety from any external threat. They spoke of unity and peace, but their actions told another story. They started building massive orbital platforms around Earth, disguised as research stations. New military ships were launched, each bigger than anything built before. The public was told these ships were for deep space exploration. Only a few insiders knew their real purpose. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, a floating city rose from the waves, a secret base for the new fleet. Engineers worked day and night. Factories on every continent built parts that were quietly shipped there under different names. The goal was to create something never seen before, a war fleet capable of reaching the stars. Meanwhile, propaganda began spreading slowly. Documentaries appeared on television talking about potential alien threats. Social media filled with stories of alien viruses, cosmic dangers, and unknown risks. People who had once prayed to meet other life forms now began to fear the very idea. Slowly, fear became unity. Fear became purpose. In every country, young people joined new space defense programs. Recruiters promised them honor, pride, and a place in history. Billboards showed images of shining ships protecting the planet. The message was clear. Humanity must defend itself. It was no longer about discovery. It was about survival. Yet among all this movement, there were still people who doubted. Scientists who remembered the original message as nothing more than a plea for help began to feel uneasy. They were pushed out of meetings, their voices silenced, their research erased. The new leaders didn't want discussion. They wanted obedience. They called it the age of preparation. It was, in truth, the age of fear. One quiet evening, in a laboratory far from the public eye, a group of researchers worked secretly on the old data. They compared the first signal to the new faint echoes. The results shocked them. The pattern wasn't a threat. It wasn't a weapon. It was the same distress call, only weaker, like a voice fading away into space. The aliens, whoever they were, had kept calling for help even as their strength failed. The scientists tried to send their findings to the higher authorities. Their messages were ignored. Some were told to drop the subject. Others were reassigned. One of them wrote in her notes, "We are preparing for war against someone who never attacked us." Those words would never be seen by the public. While the world looked upward in fear, Earth itself began to change. Money that once went into schools, hospitals, and science now flowed into defense projects. The skies filled with drones and satellites. Cities near coasts became restricted zones, and military secrecy became normal. Humanity was getting ready for something, but nobody outside the top circles knew exactly what. Then came the day the WDC made their announcement. It was broadcast live on every major channel. The global commander stood before a massive backdrop showing Earth from space. His voice was calm and firm. "We have received multiple unidentified transmissions from deep space. We cannot confirm their origin. We cannot confirm their intent. Our responsibility is to protect our world and our people. We are building the first global defense fleet to ensure our survival." The crowd watching on screens across the planet clapped and cheered. For a moment, fear turned into pride. People wanted to believe humanity was strong, that it could handle anything. No one realized they were celebrating the beginning of something that would soon take humanity to the edge of its own morals. Soon, Earth's orbit looked different. Bright lights moved across the night sky, ships being tested, new satellites deployed. The WDC called them Guardians. Privately, they called them Shields. Each one was armed. At first, life went on as normal. Children still played, markets still opened, and people still laughed. Yet there was an invisible weight pressing down on everything. People felt watched. Governments grew stricter about information. Some who spoke against militarization disappeared quietly from their jobs. The world was united, yes, but not by trust, by fear. Months passed. Then a rumor spread that one of the new space stations had picked up an image. A visual trace of something near the dying star that had sent the first signal. It wasn't confirmed publicly, but whispers said it showed massive debris fields as if a civilization had been destroyed. Some officials called it proof that the aliens were dangerous. Others quietly wondered if it was proof that they had been wiped out by something else, something unknown. The debate never reached the public. The WDC cut all discussion. They only released one statement. We will not wait to be attacked. We will act when necessary. From that day forward, the world lived under a single rule: never trust what comes from the sky. Still, not everyone agreed. Hidden in corners of universities and observatories, small groups of researchers continued studying the signals. They believed humanity had made a terrible mistake by staying silent. They tried to create a reply, a message of peace, a simple signal that said, "We are listening." They even managed to send one test transmission into deep space using an old satellite. It was weak, but it carried a human heartbeat pattern encoded in light. They didn't tell anyone, afraid of punishment. Only a few knew. That heartbeat drifted silently into the dark, heading toward the same coordinates where the original cry had come from. Weeks later, something unexpected happened again. Telescopes detected a faint light, a flicker near the same star. For a moment, hope returned. People whispered that maybe the aliens had answered. But before anyone could confirm, the WDC cut off all data channels. The official explanation said it was a solar flare, yet many didn't believe it. The timing was too perfect. After that, Earth became even more secretive. The WDC fleet was almost ready. The first ships, enormous and silver like floating fortresses, waited in the shadow of the moon. They said it was for exploration, but every engine, every hull plate, every system was built for war. Somewhere on Earth, a young technician watched one of those ships rise from the ocean base and break through the clouds. The sound shook the sky. People cheered below, but he felt only dread. He whispered softly, "We're going to them, not to help, but to fight." Humanity had received a call for help. The response was not compassion. It was preparation. The fear of the unknown had turned into the greatest weapon ever built. And above the planet, among the stars, something unseen was listening again. The world had stopped pretending this was about peace. By now, everyone knew humanity was preparing for war, not communication. Earth's orbit was filled with machines, ships, and massive steel frames that glimmered in the sunlight like floating skeletons. The World Defense Command called it Operation Dawnlight. The public believed it was a mission of exploration, but those inside the project knew the truth. It was a response. A military answer to a message that only asked for help. The operation became the biggest project in human history. Factories ran day and night, building engines that could survive the darkness between stars. Engineers slept on workshop floors. Pilots trained in secret simulators that mimicked zero gravity. The entire planet had turned into one giant workshop for war. High above Earth, the first fleet began to take shape. Hundreds of ships, all connected by a single purpose, to reach the source of the alien signal. Some of the ships were designed for transport, carrying supplies and scanners. Others were heavy and dark, armed with rail cannons and guided missiles that could tear through asteroids. Each one carried the emblem of the WDC, a silver shield wrapped around the planet. A symbol meant to look like protection, but to those who looked closer, it resembled a cage. On the day of the launch, the sky turned silver. People gathered in open fields, rooftops, and city squares to watch. They cheered as bright trails of light rose into the air, crossing the clouds like shooting stars in reverse. News anchors called it a new era of unity. Children waved flags. The world believed it was witnessing history, the day humanity reached for the stars. Only a few knew that humanity was reaching not with open hands, but with clenched fists. Inside the main control center, rows of officers and scientists watched the giant screens, showing live footage of the ships ascending. The fleet commander stood quietly at the front, hands behind his back, his face calm but unreadable. The moment the first ship broke through the atmosphere, the room erupted in applause. Yet beneath the excitement, a strange heaviness lingered, something no one dared speak aloud. Hours later, the fleet entered orbit. From there, the ships aligned in formation, their metallic bodies reflecting the sunlight. They looked like a school of silver fish drifting through the darkness. A broadcast played across every screen on Earth. The commander's voice echoed, strong and measured. Today, humanity steps beyond its limits. We do not seek conflict, but we will not run from the unknown. We carry the hopes of every man, woman, and child on this planet. Operation Dawnlight begins now. The world roared with pride. But not everyone cheered. In quiet homes and small observatories, a few people watched the launch with heavy hearts. They remembered the original message, the soft, simple words, "We need help." Those words were now buried under fear and pride. Days turned into weeks as the fleet traveled farther than any human had gone. They moved through the cold emptiness of space, powered by new engines that glowed blue like ocean light. The journey was silent yet tense. The soldiers on board had been told they were explorers, but their training told another story. Every drill, every test, every briefing spoke about defense, attack, and survival. Inside the flagship, a massive ship named Resolute, the crew moved with precision. Hundreds of people worked together like one machine. The air was always filled with low hums and quiet voices. Each day the commander stood before the crew and reminded them, "We're not here to start a war. We're here to protect humanity." Yet deep down, most of them knew, protection and destruction were now the same thing. As the fleet moved through the void, strange signals started to appear. Faint energy traces flickered across the scanners, disappearing as soon as they appeared. Some believed it was the same alien source guiding them forward. Others thought it was a trap. The argument spread among the crew. Some were curious. Some were terrified. One engineer quietly said, "If they wanted to attack us, they could have done it long ago." No one answered him. Months passed. The further the ships traveled, the more they realized how far they were from home. Earth became just a small blue dot behind them, fading into darkness. Many in the fleet began to feel uneasy. The excitement of launch had turned into exhaustion. The silence of space had a weight. It pressed on them like an invisible ocean. Some started dreaming of strange lights. Others said they heard faint voices in the radio static, like whispers carried by the stars. Then one day, the fleet's sensors picked up something solid. A planet. The coordinates matched the source of the first alien signal. The commander ordered the fleet to slow down. Every ship held its breath as they approached. From a distance, the planet looked peaceful, covered in silver clouds and faint blue light. But as they got closer, the truth appeared. The surface was scarred. Massive craters spread like wounds. Cities, or what was left of them, were crumbled ruins. Fires no longer burned, but their black marks remained. The scanners detected no life signs, at least none strong enough to register. Only faint energy pulses deep underground. The fleet went silent. The officers stared at their screens, unable to believe what they saw. The place that had called for help was already dead. After a long pause, the commander spoke quietly. "Begin surface scans." Drones were launched toward the planet, gliding through the thin atmosphere. Their cameras sent back images of shattered towers, dried rivers, and twisted metal. It looked like a world that had once been alive, full of life and technology, but had been struck by something catastrophic. Some kind of war, or something even worse. Hours later, one drone detected movement. It wasn't much, just a small heat signature near the edge of a collapsed structure. When the drone turned its lens, everyone on the bridge froze. There among the ruins, a figure moved, thin, fragile, glowing faintly with a blue-white light. It stumbled forward, raising its arms slowly as if trying to signal. The crew gasped. For a long time, no one spoke. Then the commander ordered the ship's cameras to zoom in. The creature looked weak, trembling, barely standing. Around it, several more figures appeared, smaller, moving slower. They weren't soldiers. They weren't armed. They looked like survivors. The commander's face hardened. He turned to his officers. "We need confirmation," he said. "Are they the source of the signal?" "Yes, sir," one replied quietly. "It's the same frequency. They've been transmitting from this location." For a brief moment, a strange silence filled the bridge. Some faces showed wonder, others fear. The scientist in charge of the analysis whispered, "They're not hostile. They're dying." That word, dying, echoed through the room like a bell. The soldiers shifted uneasily. Some looked down. Others clenched their fists. The commander stared at the images for a long time. "Keep your distance," he finally said. "No contact yet." The order spread through the fleet. Ships held their position above the planet. Drones continued recording, sending back image after image of what was left of that civilization. Some of the aliens seemed to notice the drones. They reached toward the sky as if trying to communicate. No one replied. That night, the crew gathered in the mess hall. The screens replayed the footage on a loop. Whispers filled the room. "They look so human," one soldier said quietly. "Not in shape, but in pain." Another replied, "Doesn't matter. Orders are orders. We wait for command." Back on Earth, the leaders received the footage. They watched in silence as the images played. Then they held a closed meeting. Some advisors suggested helping the survivors. Others argued against it. "We can't risk contamination," they said. "We can't trust them. For all we know, they're bait." The debate went on for hours. Finally, one voice cut through the noise. "We can't take chances. We neutralize the area. No witnesses. No technology falls into unknown hands." The order was sent. Out in space, the commander received the coded message. He read it twice, his face expressionless. Then he closed his eyes briefly and gave the command. "All ships, prepare for containment protocol." The crew obeyed. None of them spoke. The weapon systems came online, glowing red in the dark. The alien survivors on the planet below looked up as the ships moved into attack formation. They didn't run. They simply watched the sky, their faint lights flickering like candles in the wind. No one on the ships cheered. No one felt victory. Only silence followed the final command. As the fleet drifted above the broken world, the commander stood at the observation window, watching the planet spin slowly below him. His reflection stared back, a man leading a mission born from fear. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "We answered the call." Behind him, the stars looked endless, cold and empty. The planet below was silent now. Smoke drifted slowly through the thin atmosphere, curling into the blackness of space like faint ghosts. The fleet hovered above, their lights blinking cold and distant. From orbit, it looked peaceful again, too peaceful. No one spoke on the command decks. No one celebrated. The screen showed the surface as nothing more than scorched land, quiet and still. It was over. At least that's what everyone told themselves. Inside the flagship, the atmosphere was heavy. The air felt thick, almost unbreathable. Some of the crew kept working, pretending to focus on meaningless data. Others stared at their screens without seeing anything. The silence was worse than noise. It made every thought louder, every doubt harder to ignore. A young operator sat in front of a small console, eyes fixed on the faint static that replaced the signal they had destroyed. For days, that signal had filled the ship like a heartbeat. Now there was nothing, only emptiness. He rubbed his eyes, trying to convince himself they had done the right thing. They had followed orders. They had protected humanity. Yet a small voice inside him whispered that something about it felt wrong. The commander walked across the control room slowly, his boots echoing on the metal floor. He stopped by the observation window, staring at the planet below. His reflection looked tired, older somehow. The stars outside glimmered faintly as if watching him. Behind him, one of the officers finally spoke. "All targets confirmed neutralized, sir." The commander nodded but didn't answer. His voice, when it finally came, was low. "Retrieve the drones. I want full surface scans before we leave." The order was routine, but the tone wasn't. It sounded almost like regret. The drones began descending again, their small engines glowing softly. They flew low over the ruins, scanning for movement, for energy, for life. At first, the results were as expected, nothing. Just ashes and silence. Then after several minutes, one of the drones picked up something faint. A small pulse, Weak, irregular, the technician frowned. Sir, we're detecting a power signature. It's coming from underground, the commander turned sharply. Show me. On the screen, a dull red dot blinked beneath the surface of the ruined city. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a room. The readings suggested some kind of energy shield, barely active, struggling to hold on. The commander ordered a closer look. The drone moved lower, passing through layers of dust and debris. When it reached the opening, the camera flickered for a moment, then focused. Inside a hollow chamber lay several alien figures, motionless except for one. It was kneeling beside what looked like a console, pressing weakly on glowing panels. Its light was dim, fading. Yet when it saw the drone, it didn't react with fear or hostility. It simply looked up and raised its hand slowly as if greeting. The drone sent back the image in perfect clarity. The bridge fell silent again. No one moved. No one spoke. The commander's jaw tightened. Shut it down, he said finally. The technician hesitated. Sir, I said shut it down. The drone released a short burst of plasma and the screen went white. The red dot disappeared from the scanners. No one said another word. Later that night, the crew gathered in the mess hall. The air felt heavier than before. The food on their trays was untouched. Some tried to talk about ordinary things, Earth, families, music, but the conversations never lasted. They all knew they had seen something they weren't supposed to see, something that didn't fit the story they had been told. One of the engineers whispered, "That thing. It wasn't attacking us. It was trying to communicate." Someone else replied softly, "Maybe it was saying goodbye." The words hung in the air like dust. The commander didn't eat. He stayed alone in his cabin, staring at a single photograph of Earth pinned to the wall. It showed the oceans bright and blue. He used to find comfort in that image. Now it only reminded him of what they had left behind. The warmth, the noise, the life. Out here among the cold stars, everything felt distant, even humanity itself. The next morning, they prepared to leave orbit. The fleet was to return home with its mission completed. Officially, the report would say that the planet posed a threat. The alien technology was too unstable to risk contact. It was all written, ready to be signed and sealed. But before departure, one last scan picked up something strange. A faint wave of radiation spreading outward from the planet's surface, soft, rhythmic, almost like a signal. It didn't look like an explosion or natural reaction. It was deliberate. A message. The communications officer frowned as the signal repeated. It wasn't strong, but it was clear enough to decode. Only 3 words appeared on the screen. You chose war. The room froze. Everyone stared at the words, hearts pounding. The signal ended abruptly, replaced once again by silence. The commander said nothing. He simply turned away from the screen, his face pale. Prepare to jump, he said quietly. We're going home. As the ships prepared to leave, the planet behind them began to fade into the distance. The scanners picked up faint activity deep beneath the crust. Something large moving slowly, too deep to identify. The data was dismissed as interference. No one wanted to think about it. They just wanted to go home. The journey back was quiet. Too quiet. No one played music. No one told stories. Even the hum of the engine sounded heavier. The soldiers avoided eye contact, afraid that one look might reveal their guilt. A few tried to justify it. It was necessary, they whispered. They could have been dangerous. But their voices lacked conviction. Back on Earth, the fleet was greeted as heroes. The return broadcast was filled with celebrations, fireworks, and speeches. The leaders smiled proudly, shaking hands, promising peace and safety. Humanity stands strong, they declared. The unknown has been neutralized. The people cheered. They didn't see the tired faces behind those metal helmets. They didn't see the sleepless eyes or shaking hands. They only saw victory. For a few weeks, the world lived in a strange state of relief. News channels called the mission a success. The public believed they had avoided danger. Humanity had proven it could protect itself. Yet beneath the surface, questions started to grow. Some of the scientists who studied the mission data noticed strange inconsistencies. The energy readings from the alien planet didn't match any known weapon or technology. The patterns of the supposed attacks were irregular, more like communication attempts than aggression. But when they asked for clarification, they were told to stop investigating. One of them quietly leaked fragments of the truth to an independent reporter. The story never reached the public. The reporter vanished a week later, and the scientist was transferred to a classified facility. The world went back to silence. Meanwhile, deep in the Space Command Center, strange readings started appearing again. Faint signals, low frequency, coming from the direction of the destroyed planet. They were weak at first, almost invisible, but every few days they grew stronger. The technicians thought it was an echo, a leftover reflection from the first signal. Yet something about it was different. The rhythm wasn't the same. It wasn't asking for help anymore, it was counting. The pattern repeated. 1 pulse, pause, 2 pulses, pause, 3. It went on and on like a countdown. When the commander saw the data, his face turned pale. He asked for confirmation again and again, but the results were always the same. Something was coming. Something big he didn't tell the public. He didn't tell the government. The last thing Earth needed was panic. Instead, the World Defense Command quietly reactivated the fleet. Factories began working again, pretending it was maintenance. Soldiers were recalled. Scientists were ordered to stay silent. But among those who had been on that mission, whispers spread. They remembered the dying world, the survivors reaching toward the sky, the message, "You chose war." Some of them started to believe that the countdown wasn't a warning, it was a promise. In one dark corner of the command center, the same young operator who had once watched the first signal blink softly on a screen sat alone. The new signal was back, steady and strong now. He stared at it for a long time, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for the communication panel. He wanted to send something back, anything. A word, a signal, an apology. Before he could, the console shut down automatically. The connection was locked. The system had new restrictions. No outbound messages without top-level clearance. He sat there for a while, staring at the frozen screen before whispering softly to himself, "They heard us once. Now they're answering." Outside, the night sky above Earth looked calm, almost peaceful. Yet behind that stillness, in the cold vacuum of space, something unseen was already moving. Humanity had silenced a cry for help. Now the universe was preparing to respond. The countdown had been going on for months now, growing stronger each week. It appeared on every military screen like a ghost, steady, rhythmic, unstoppable. No one could explain it, and no one could stop it. The pattern had spread far beyond Earth's systems, showing up in satellites, deep space radars, even private observatories. The strange thing was that no one had ever seen the source move. It stayed somewhere beyond the old alien world, hidden behind layers of dust and debris. At first, leaders said it was just an echo, nothing to worry about. Interference, they called it. But the soldiers who had been part of the first mission, the ones who destroyed the alien planet, knew better. They recognized that rhythm. It wasn't random. It was alive. The commander of that mission had changed since the day he returned. His once proud voice was now quiet and distant. He avoided the celebrations and rarely gave interviews. At night, he would sit alone in the dark, staring at an old recording of that final transmission. "You chose war." Those words haunted him. One morning, he received a coded message from the Defense Command. It was short. "Report immediately. Situation critical." He knew what it meant before he even arrived. In the underground control center, the air felt tense. People moved quickly between screens, whispering to each other, avoiding eye contact. The large display in the middle showed a series of dots, dozens of them, approaching from deep space. They weren't asteroids and they weren't natural. They were moving in formation. A voice from the corner said, "Estimated time before contact, 72 hours. No one spoke for several seconds. It had begun. The same officer who had destroyed the last surviving alien chamber was now standing at the back of the room. He looked pale, his eyes red from sleepless nights. "Are we sure it's them?" he asked quietly. The technician nodded. "The energy readings match. Same frequency, same pulse. It's them, sir. They're coming." The commander didn't speak. He simply stared at the approaching dots, knowing deep inside that this was the reply humanity had earned. 3 days later, the night sky changed. Every telescope, every satellite, every radar picked up the same sight. A strange silver glow spreading across the stars like a curtain slowly unfolding. At first, people thought it was beautiful. News channels called it a cosmic light show. Social media was filled with photos of the shimmering arc stretching across space. Children pointed at the sky in wonder. But in the command centers, the truth was clear. The light wasn't a natural event. It was movement. Thousands of enormous crafts were entering the solar system, their trails glowing like silver fire. Humanity had no time to prepare. The World Defense Council declared an emergency. Every space fleet was launched, every weapon system activated. The largest ships were moved to defend Earth's orbit. For the first time, all nations stood together, not out of unity but out of fear. In the middle of the chaos, scientists tried to make contact again. They sent peaceful messages across all frequencies. "We misunderstood. We're sorry. We want to talk." No response came. Only the countdown continued. 60 hours. 59. 58. The people on Earth began to panic as strange lights appeared in the sky. Governments tried to calm them, saying it was just a meteor shower. But fear spread faster than truth. Streets filled with confusion. Some prayed. Some packed and fled to the countryside. Others simply stood outside, watching the heavens in silence. In orbit, the human fleets formed a defense line near the moon. Hundreds of ships, sleek, powerful, and heavily armed, waited in formation. Pilots checked their controls, their hands trembling. Every screen showed the same thing: the approaching armada, vast and silent. Then, without warning, the countdown stopped. Every system across the solar network went dark for a few seconds. Communication, radar, navigation, all gone. The silence was unbearable. When the lights came back, the alien fleet was already there. They didn't look like the creatures from human stories. Their ships were elegant, not monstrous. They shimmered like liquid metal, changing shape slowly as if breathing. They didn't fire immediately, they just waited. The commander, standing on the bridge of the main ship, felt his heart pounding. He didn't want to fight, but he knew the world was watching. He gave the order quietly: "Hold positions. Do not engage unless fired upon." For several long minutes, nothing happened. The two armadas faced each other in absolute stillness. It felt less like a standoff and more like judgment. Then a faint signal appeared on the main screen. A single symbol, unreadable, foreign, but familiar somehow. It pulsed once, twice, 3 times. The same rhythm as the old SOS signal. The commander stepped closer. "Open the channel," he said softly. The technician hesitated. "Sir, what if—" "Open it." The signal expanded, turning into a strange pattern of light. The translation system struggled for a moment before displaying 3 simple words on the screen. We waited. "You chose." Before anyone could respond, one of the alien ships fired a narrow beam, not at the humans but into the empty space behind them. The beam split into thousands of fragments, each glowing brighter than the sun for a moment before fading. Then the human communication screen started to flicker. One by one, systems failed again. It wasn't an attack, it was interference. The aliens were disabling their weapons, panic spread. Officers shouted, engineers tried to reboot systems, but nothing worked. Finally, one of the soldiers broke the silence. "They're not destroying us. They're showing us what they can do." It was true. The alien fleet wasn't attacking. It was demonstrating power, control beyond anything human technology could imagine. They could have ended it all in seconds, yet they didn't. They wanted to be understood. Suddenly, the screen showed another message. "We asked for help. You answered with fire." A heavy silence filled the bridge. No one dared speak. Then something unexpected happened. The aliens turned off their lights. The entire fleet vanished into the dark, fading slowly as if swallowed by the stars. Within minutes, the sky was empty again. The human ships floated quietly, systems still frozen. No explosions, no battles, no sound. Just stillness. Hours passed before power returned. Every crew member stared at their consoles, waiting for the next move. None came. The alien fleet had left as silently as it arrived. When Earth received the news, relief washed over the planet. People celebrated again, calling it a second chance. The media declared victory, saying humanity had shown strength. Yet those who were in space knew the truth. It wasn't victory, it was mercy. The commander didn't join the celebrations. He sat alone watching the data logs. The aliens hadn't attacked because they didn't need to. They had learned everything they wanted to know about humanity. About fear, about power. A scientist later found something strange in the transmission logs. Hidden within the alien signal was a final code, deeply encrypted. It wasn't detected at first, but when decoded, it revealed a single phrase: judgment delayed, not forgotten. That night, the commander couldn't sleep. He looked out at the stars from his window, knowing that somewhere out there they were watching. Waiting. Over the next weeks, strange events began happening across the solar system. Communication satellites malfunctioned. Energy surges hit lunar bases. Probes disappeared near the outer planets. Each time there was no explosion, no debris, just silence. It was as if something was quietly erasing traces of humanity from the edges of space. Some said it was natural. Others whispered that the aliens were cleaning the battlefield before the real war began. The commander knew what it was. It was a warning. The aliens weren't gone. They were testing humanity's patience the way humanity had once tested theirs. In secret meetings, world leaders debated what to do. Some wanted to prepare another fleet. Others argued that attacking again would doom everyone. Nobody agreed. Fear had replaced reason. One night, the commander received a private message from a scientist who had worked on decoding the signals. It said, "They understand us better than we understand them." Their message wasn't about war. It was about judgment. "They want us to change before it's too late." He didn't reply. He simply stared at the screen, thinking about that dying alien who had raised its hand as if asking for peace. On Earth, people began to forget again. Life returned to normal. News moved on to other topics: sports, politics, entertainment. The skies were calm and no one wanted to think about what was out there. But deep in the command archives, the countdown had restarted. It was faint, almost invisible, hidden in the background noise of space. Only a few people noticed it. This time it wasn't counting down from 60. It started from 1,000. Quietly, relentlessly, it began again. The countdown had restarted, ticking silently in the background of space communication systems. Only a handful of people knew about it, and they tried to keep it hidden from the rest of the world. The number started from 1,000, and every 24 hours it dropped by 1. No explanation, no message. Just that steady, cold rhythm. At first, the scientists thought it was another echo, a leftover signal from the alien fleet. But when they tried to trace it, they realized something impossible. It wasn't coming from deep space. It was coming from inside the solar system. Somewhere near the orbit of Neptune, something was transmitting the signal, something large. The commander, who had once led the first mission, was called back to the base. Years had passed since the alien confrontation, and his hair had turned gray, but his eyes were still sharp. He knew this wasn't over. Humanity had been given a warning, not forgiveness. When he entered the main control room, everyone went silent. On the central screen, a faint shape was visible, round, metallic, and massive. It wasn't moving fast, but it was getting closer every day. It didn't send messages, didn't respond to signals. It just floated steadily toward the inner planets. "What's the distance?" he asked quietly. "About 600 million kilometers," one of the technicians replied. "It's moving at constant speed. If it stays like this, it'll reach Earth's orbit in about 900 days. The commander nodded slowly. "And the countdown?" "Still going down, sir. 970 left." That number matched perfectly. The countdown wasn't a signal, it was a timer. Whatever was coming was already on its way. The government tried to hide the truth from the public. They didn't want panic. They released fake news stories about a new comet and a rare cosmic body to explain the growing object in the sky. But small observatories began detecting strange readings: energy pulses, magnetic storms, things no comet could produce. People started asking questions. At first, the rumors spread quietly. Then one night, a private space telescope captured a clear image of the object and leaked it online. Within hours, the world saw it. A massive structure, circular, smooth, and glowing faintly with blue light. It didn't look like a rock or asteroid. It looked made. The internet exploded with theories. Some said it was a new planet. Others claimed it was an alien weapon. Governments kept denying everything, but the fear was already spreading. People started remembering the old story: the alien SOS, the fleet, and the silence that followed. Meanwhile, in the secret command center, scientists worked day and night to understand the signal. They discovered something chilling hidden deep within the countdown code, a repeating phrase like a whisper in the data. It said, "We waited. You did not learn." The commander stared at those words for a long time. His hands trembled slightly. He had spent years trying to forget that message, but now it had returned colder than before. The world leaders gathered in an emergency meeting, far below ground in a hidden bunker. Every screen showed the same thing, the slow approach of the unknown object. They argued for hours. Some wanted to attack it before it reached the inner system. Others said it was better to wait, to try communication again. No one agreed. Fear controlled the room. Finally, they decided to prepare both ways. They would send messages of peace while quietly building new defense fleets. The message they sent was simple. We are ready to talk. We made mistakes. We seek peace. No reply came. The object kept moving. As weeks turned into months, strange things started happening. Satellites lost contact for no reason. The magnetic field of Earth began to fluctuate. Navigation systems went crazy. Planes were forced to land manually. The sky sometimes flashed with strange silent lights at night. People began to panic again. Some thought it was the end. Others said it was divine punishment. Religious groups appeared overnight, preaching that the sky gods were returning. Scientists tried to calm everyone, but they were losing control of the truth. Then, one morning, the countdown reached 500. At that exact moment, the object near Neptune changed course. Its speed doubled. For the first time, it emitted light, a thin, glowing beam that stretched across millions of kilometers. It wasn't a weapon, not yet, but it was clearly signaling something. The commander ordered all observation drones to focus on it. What they saw made everyone freeze. The object wasn't a single ship, it was a swarm. Thousands of smaller structures began separating from the main body, spreading out like petals of a flower. Each one pulsed with the same rhythm as the countdown. It wasn't one visitor. It was an entire fleet. The next days were filled with chaos. The governments couldn't hide it anymore. The whole world watched as the alien formation grew larger, brighter, and more organized. People flooded the streets, building shelters, praying and crying. Every country prepared for the worst. The commander addressed the United Defense Council for the last time. They gave us a chance once, he said, his voice quiet but firm. We destroyed it. This time, they're not asking. Still, some scientists believed it wasn't too late. They begged to try communication again. They created a signal made from human brainwave patterns, a kind of emotional language meant to express sincerity beyond words. It was transmitted toward the alien fleet. For 3 days, there was no answer. Then on the 4th day, the alien signal changed. The countdown stopped at 300. The world celebrated. People believed the message had worked, that peace was possible, but the commander wasn't convinced. It's not over, he whispered. He was right. 2 days later, every digital screen on Earth, phones, televisions, billboards, turned black. Then white symbols began appearing. The same symbols that once flashed before the alien attack years ago. Slowly, they formed a sentence that no one could misunderstand. We saw your world. We saw your hearts. Then another line followed. You destroy what you fear. The symbols vanished, replaced by one final line. Now you will learn fear. In space, the alien fleet shifted again. The main structure opened, revealing a vast circle of light at its core. It didn't fire beams or projectiles, it simply emitted a soundless wave of energy. It moved through space like ripples through water, invisible yet powerful. When the wave reached the moon, its surface trembled. Dust and rock lifted, floating for seconds before settling again. Instruments on Earth recorded massive energy spikes. Then the lights on Earth flickered. Power grids failed. Cities went dark. Every machine, every satellite, every network went offline in an instant. Humanity, so proud of its technology, was thrown into silence. For the first time in centuries, the world was truly dark. People looked up at the night sky and saw something strange. The stars seemed dimmer, as if distant and faint. The blue glow of the alien fleet still shone beyond the darkness, calm and steady. The commander stood on the balcony of the Earth Defense Center, staring at that light. He didn't feel anger anymore, only sorrow. They didn't destroy us, he said quietly. They took away what made us dangerous. Over the following weeks, humanity tried to rebuild. Without power, they turned to old ways: fire, candles, farming by hand. Cities shrank, but communities grew closer. People who had once ignored each other began sharing food, light, and hope. Something unexpected began to happen. Without machines to distract them, humans started talking again. helping again, caring again. The commander, now old and tired, watched this change from his small home by the sea. He realized that perhaps the aliens weren't punishing humanity. Maybe they were forcing them to remember what it meant to be human. One evening, as he watched the sky, a faint blue light appeared again on the horizon. Not as large as before, just a single beam, shining softly over the ocean. It stayed for a few minutes, then faded away. A gentle voice came through one of the few working transmitters on Earth, a voice that sounded neither male nor female, neither kind nor cruel. It simply said, "Now you understand." Then it was gone. From that day forward, the countdown never returned. The skies remained quiet, but humanity had changed. People no longer looked at the stars with arrogance or greed. They looked with respect and a hint of humility. The old commander passed away years later, sitting peacefully by the sea. Beside him lay a small metal device that still carried the faint pattern of the alien signal. It blinked once every few minutes, steady and calm like a heartbeat. No one ever knew if the aliens were still watching, or if they had moved on to other worlds. But Earth never forgot the lesson. When the stars flickered at night, people whispered softly, "They're still out there, waiting for us to stay kind." And for the first time in history, humanity truly listened.